Something shifted last night, and most people have no idea. And now, the consequences are here. We've just been hit with the most powerful lunar event of the entire year, and if you're spiritually attuned, there is a message you need to hear right now. Not everyone will receive this message. Not everyone is ready for it, but you are. I believe the universe always finds a way to deliver a message to you, and if that's true, that's why you're here right now. I'm telling you this because I know you've been feeling like something is about to change, and you deserve to understand why. You need to know what this moon has activated for you. Its effects didn't appear last night. They're appearing now. You won't know it today, but these next few days will define everything that follows. There's a moment in every story where the character has no idea they've just crossed the invisible line that changes the entire plot. That's exactly where you're standing right now. You will look back on the days immediately following this cold supermoon and realize, without a doubt, that this was the turning point. The moment where something in your life quietly rerouted, even if you can't see the direction yet. A beginning disguised as an ordinary day. And if you're thinking, how? If you're wondering what could possibly make these next days so important, you're about to find out why this supermoon didn't just close a chapter, it opened the one thing you never expected to step into next. Nothing you gave disappeared. It's been circling back to you this entire time. One of the most overlooked effects of a supermoon is how it amplifies the return of everything a person has quietly invested into their life without realizing it. And this one, the final full moon of the year, carried a very specific kind of energy, the kind that accelerates what has been waiting for the right moment to come back around. Think about the last months, even the last few years, and consider how many times you've chosen patience instead of frustration, understanding instead of anger, compassion instead of judgment, or resilience instead of collapse. None of those moments vanished into the air. Every single one landed somewhere, planted itself in the world, and started forming its own momentum. Yesterday's supermoon acted like a catalyst that shook the soil around all those seeds. It didn't create new rewards out of nowhere. It simply activated the ones that have been quietly waiting for their moment to rise. This is what people often forget. Goodness doesn't return instantly. It gathers weight. It gathers direction. And when enough has built up, the right cosmic moment triggers it to move toward you all at once. This supermoon was that trigger. You may notice in the coming days that things begin shifting in a way that feels oddly fair, even if you weren't expecting fairness. Opportunities that felt stalled may suddenly move. People who once overlooked you may start paying attention. Conversations that once led nowhere may open paths you didn't see before. This isn't coincidence. It's the natural balancing of energy you've contributed long before this moment. And the truth is simple. The universe never forgets the energy you invest. It only waits for the right moment to multiply it. This is why the atmosphere feels lighter today. Not because anything was magically solved overnight, but because the weight you've been carrying is finally being counterbalanced by everything you've given. The scales are shifting, not in a small symbolic way, but in a tangible way you'll feel through circumstances, timing, opportunities, and support that show up exactly when you need them. If you've ever felt like your efforts were invisible or your generosity went unnoticed, this is the period where life begins proving otherwise. Everything good you've done is returning, and it's arriving with interest. And understanding why it's happening now leads directly into the next shift you may already be feeling. When life pulls something away from you, it's often because your future can't afford for you to hold on to it. One of the most misunderstood outcomes of powerful lunar energy is the sudden feeling of distance. Distance from people, from environments, from conversations, from situations that once felt routine or familiar. After this supermoon, many people are noticing abrupt emotional disconnections, unexpected silence from certain individuals, relationships that suddenly feel out of rhythm, or plans that simply don't follow through. The instinct is to label these moments as rejection or loss, but that's not what's happening here. This particular supermoon created a clearing effect that didn't ask for permission. It allowed anything misaligned with your next level to naturally fall away. The truth is that your energy elevated faster than the environments around you, and anything that couldn't adapt to that shift had to loosen its grip. This isn't punishment, and it isn't abandonment, it's protection. The universe didn't move people out of your life to hurt you. It moved them because your next chapter requires a different energetic structure than the one you've been living in. And whether it's uncomfortable or confusing in the moment, this temporary isolation phase is what anchors the new version of you that the supermoon activated. Think of it like this. When you rise in frequency, not everyone can breathe at your altitude. Some connections dissolve not because you did anything wrong, but because they were never meant to climb that high with you. You may feel moments of loneliness, but solitude right now isn't emptiness, it's recalibration. It's your energy stabilizing so it doesn't get pulled back into old patterns, old dynamics, or old versions of yourself that no longer match who you've become. This is why doors closed suddenly. This is why certain conversations felt unfinished. This is why some people quietly drifted out of your orbit. You weren't being pushed aside, you were being positioned. And the more you reflect on it, the more you'll notice that every separation was actually a form of redirection. You're not isolated for no reason, you're being given space to prepare for what comes next. Rejection is rarely rejection, it's the universe removing what would have held you back from where you're meant to go. You're not losing anything, you're being protected, and that protection is setting the stage for the next part of your transformation, which is already beginning whether you see it yet or not. Silence is not absence, it's preparation. A lot of people expect a supermoon to hit them like a wave of emotion or a burst of clarity, and when it doesn't, they assume they've missed something. They think they weren't aligned enough, aware enough, or spiritually in tune enough to feel the shift. But that idea couldn't be further from the truth, because this particular supermoon worked in a completely different way. Its impact wasn't always loud, dramatic, or obvious. For many, it arrived in the form of a deep, almost unsettling stillness. And that stillness wasn't a sign of nothing happening. It was a sign that something was happening so profoundly that your system had to go quiet just to handle it. When nothing seems to move, it's usually because something important is repositioning beneath the surface. Imagine standing backstage just seconds before the curtain opens. You're not moving, you're not talking, but everything is building toward the moment you step into the light. That's the type of nothing people felt under this supermoon, a suspended energy, a pause that wasn't passive, but strategic. The universe wasn't ignoring you, it was holding its breath with you. It was giving you a moment of neutrality so the next phase could land without interference. This kind of quiet is rare because it means your life is shifting in ways that don't require emotional turbulence or dramatic spiritual symptoms. Instead, it's the calm you feel right before momentum finally kicks in. Think of the times in your life when things suddenly unfolded after a long period of stagnation. The breakthrough usually didn't come with fireworks. It came after a stretch of stillness that, in hindsight, was the exact reset you needed. So if you felt nothing, don't underestimate that experience. For some people, the biggest confirmation of change is the absence of chaos. It means you're not resisting anything. It means your energy didn't need to fight or purge or unravel. It means the transition was smooth enough that your body and mind didn't have to panic or react. And that quietness is a sign of readiness, a sign that you're finally in a place where change doesn't overwhelm you. It aligns with you. When the universe prepares someone for acceleration, it often starts with silence. And the silence you felt wasn't empty, it was potential gathering itself. Because the next part of your journey won't require noise to prove it's real. You've already passed the hardest part. There is an older, deeper symbolism behind the cold moon that goes beyond astronomy or folklore. Historically, this moon represented the final challenging night before the slow, steady return of light. Not in a dramatic, apocalyptic sense, but in a grounded, cyclical sense that mirrors the human emotional landscape. Every cycle has a point where things feel heaviest, where clarity feels furthest away, and where progress feels the most invisible. The cold moon marks that point. And the moment it passes, the direction of the entire cycle shifts from descent to ascent. That means something incredibly reassuring for you. Whatever has felt draining, stuck, confusing, or heavy over the past few weeks reached its peak yesterday. You already endured the hardest part without even knowing it. Yesterday's supermoon represented the deepest emotional tide, the point where pressure collects, where the year's unresolved weight becomes most visible, and where the internal shift begins preparing for an upward turn. You made it through that moment, and now the entire energetic landscape begins lifting around you. What makes this year's cold moon especially meaningful is the fact that it was a supermoon, because that magnifies the rebound. When a regular cold moon passes, the rise that follows is steady. But when a super cold moon passes, the rise becomes stronger, faster, and noticeably more aligned with what you've been working toward internally. It accelerates changes in a way that feels tangible, not symbolic, in day-to-day life. You may feel motivation returning more easily, clarity landing without overthinking, or a renewed sense of direction replacing the fog that was present before. These aren't coincidences. They're structural shifts built into the nature of this moon. Here's the hopeful truth this supermoon leaves behind. The point that feels like the end is often just the moment before the ascent begins. In the coming days, you may catch yourself feeling lighter without knowing why, or confident without external validation, or pulled towards something that finally makes sense. That's the post-cold moon rise. You've crossed the final difficult point of the cycle, and everything from here begins moving upward, not chaotically, not confusingly, but naturally, because the cycle itself is lifting you. You're stepping into the easiest part of the timeline now, the part where things begin aligning because they're meant to, not because you're fighting for them. Identity doesn't change in a moment. It reveals itself when the old version stops holding on. The final full moon of the year always carries the theme of closure. But this supermoon pushed it to another level. It didn't just close a chapter, it closed an identity you've been dragging behind you without meaning to. This wasn't about healing or releasing. It was about recognizing the person you've quietly grown into while you weren't paying attention. Over the last few months, You've been shifting in ways that didn't feel big or dramatic at the time. Tiny decisions, subtle realizations, new boundaries, small wins, small losses, all forming the architecture of the future version of you. Last night's supermoon didn't create that identity. It simply made it impossible to overlook anymore. For the first time in a long time, you're aligned with choices that match who you actually are, not who you were trying to be, not who others expected you to be, and not who your past conditioned you to perform as. This is why things that once drained you now feel irrelevant, why certain habits suddenly feel foreign, and why you sense a quiet confidence rising inside you. You're not forcing change anymore, you're embodying it. The cold moon marked the completion of the identity that belonged to this year, the version of you who survived, who adapted, who learned, who struggled, who grew. But that identity reached its finish line last night. What rises now is the version of you that finally matches your goals, your instincts, and your inner direction. And here's the line you need to carry with you. Becoming isn't something you try to do. It's something that happens when you stop being who you're not. You are becoming the person you were always meant to be, not through force, but through inevitability. Your pain didn't make you bitter, it made you powerful. One of the most profound effects of this supermoon wasn't just how it illuminated your path, but how it acknowledged everything you've endured on that path without ever demanding credit or sympathy. You've carried burdens that nobody saw, and you carried them quietly, not because you were trying to be strong, but because you didn't want your struggle to define you. That kind of strength is rare. It's the kind that doesn't come from wanting to impress anyone. It comes from choosing growth, even when the world gave you every reason to break. The supermoon has a way of reading the emotional imprint you've left on your own life. It sees the moments where you stayed kind, when you could have lashed out. The moments where you kept moving when giving up would have been easier. The moments where you forgave, not because the other person deserved it, but because you deserved peace. These choices shaped you in ways you may not fully understand yet. They refined you. They matured you. They turned your pain into a form of quiet intelligence, the kind that makes you more discerning, more resilient, and more capable of navigating what's ahead. People often assume the universe only responds to positivity or high vibration, but that's not the full picture. The universe also responds to integrity. It responds to perseverance. It responds to those who choose to rise without needing to be seen rising. You didn't collapse under the weight of what happened to you. You constructed a stronger foundation beneath it. And that is exactly why this supermoon acted the way it did, not to dredge up your wounds, but to honor the way you transformed them. This is where the crucial shift happens. The universe doesn't reward pain, it rewards transformation. It recognizes the distinction between suffering for survival and suffering that turned into strength, and you've crossed into the second category. You didn't let your experiences poison your heart or harden your perspective. You became sharper without becoming cold, wiser without becoming jaded, and stronger without losing your softness. That combination is incredibly rare, and the universe responds to it with precision. Here's the truth this supermoon quietly acknowledged. Strength gained in silence carries the loudest rewards. What's coming next isn't compensation, it's recognition. It's the universe aligning with the strength you earned the hard way. And as this lunar cycle unfolds, you'll begin to see exactly why your resilience was never wasted. Progress doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it waits for the right light, to reveal how far you've already come. The reason this supermoon felt different is because it didn't highlight what's missing in your life. It highlighted how much distance you've quietly covered without registering it. A lot of people walk around believing they're far behind or that they're running out of time, but last night proved something most viewers won't realize until much later. You're not far from your goals at all. You're finally within reach. What the supermoon actually illuminated was the gap you've been obsessed with and how much smaller it truly is. Think of how you've been showing up lately, the decisions you've been making, the things you've stopped tolerating, the ideas that feel more natural than they ever have before. These aren't traits of someone far, they're traits of someone who has quietly crossed into a new stage without updating their self-perception. This is why the energy felt so sharp last night. It wasn't trying to pressure you, it was trying to show you the truth. You've already stepped into the version of yourself you thought you were chasing. The supermoon acted like a mirror, catching you in the act of becoming. It reflected the signs you've been ignoring, synchronicities lining up faster, opportunities feeling more aligned, old fears losing their grip, and decisions that once felt impossible now feeling strangely obvious. These are markers of closeness, not distance. You're closer than you think because you've finally outgrown the version of you who believed it was far. This cold moon didn't just rise, it summoned. Most people looked up and saw a bright full moon in the December sky, the last one of the year, and assumed it was just another lunar event closing out the cycle. But for certain people, the ones who have been moving differently, thinking differently, choosing differently, this supermoon didn't simply appear, it responded. It answered the frequency you've been building, even on days when you didn't feel like you were progressing at all. And that's why this moon wasn't cold in the seasonal sense. It was cold in its precision. It moved through your energetic field the way a scalpel moves through tangled threads, not to harm, but to separate truth from noise with absolute clarity. The cold moon earned its name long before weather patterns or winter symbolism existed. Its deeper meaning is tied to sharpness, not temperature. It's the moon that strips away illusions without sentimental cushioning. It cuts through confusion with the clarity of a blade, exposing what's genuinely alive in your path and what has only been taking up energetic space. This is why certain realizations hit harder after this moon. You weren't being pushed into new awareness, you were being carved out of old limitations. What's important to understand is that this level of clarity is not something everyone is ready for. A supermoon this close amplifies what's already present in someone's life, but only those who have been internally preparing, consciously or not, experience its precision in this way. It's almost surgical. It removes what's misaligned without theatrics, without chaos, without dramatic breakdowns. You may notice that certain decisions that seemed complicated now feel straightforward, or that certain situations you tolerated suddenly feel irrelevant. This is the cold moon choosing you, choosing to work on the people who have proven they're ready to stop negotiating with the parts of their life that don't reflect their truth. This moon didn't create clarity for you. It confirmed the clarity you were already stepping toward. It sharpened your inner vision so you could finally see what has been quietly unfolding behind the scenes. And the fact that you felt this shift, even subtly, places you in the group that the cold moon selected for this new phase of alignment. Because while most people were simply observing a bright sky, you were undergoing a moment that will change how you approach the year ahead. You weren't a witness to this moon, you were the one it rose for. The moment you crossed under this supermoon, Your trajectory stopped wobbling and finally locked into place. There is a rare window that opens during certain lunar events, and this final supermoon of the year activated one of the strongest lock-in phases we've had in a long time. Think of the last 72 hours as more than just days passing. They were the sorting period, the stabilization period, the moment where the universe quietly anchored your path so that the chaos of the previous months can't keep shaking your direction. This wasn't about fate being rigid or destiny being predetermined. It was about preserving the progress you've made so you don't get pulled back into cycles you've already outgrown. Most people don't realize how many choices they make in small moments, choices driven by instinct, clarity, pressure, or even exhaustion. But those choices shape their direction far more than the big decisions they obsess over. And during this supermoon window, those seemingly minor choices became energetically permanent. The way you responded to stress, the boundaries you enforced, the conversations you initiated or avoided, the opportunities you moved toward or turned away from, every micro-decision acted like a vote for the timeline you'll walk into next. Not in a fearful way, but in a stabilizing one. The universe needed your trajectory to be clear, not scattered. Here's the empowering part. Even the smallest genuine act of courage counted. The tiny moment where you told the truth instead of staying silent. The moment you chose rest instead of burnout. People underestimate how much these moments matter, but under this supermoon, they were amplified, recorded, and anchored into your next phase. This lock-in phase ensures that expansion stays expansion and loops stay loops. If you stepped forward even a little, the universe locked you into a forward-moving trajectory that accelerates your growth. If you stayed in old patterns, those patterns may feel heavier now, not as punishment, but as contrast, highlighting what needs to change next. But for those who made even the slightest brave move, the energetic foundation of the next season is now built under your feet. You're not running out of time, you're ahead of schedule. One of the most surprising impacts of this supermoon is that the energy it released wasn't limited to closing out 2024 or even shaping the final stretch of 2025. It was already pulling the first threads of 2026 into your field. This is why some people have been feeling a strange sense of anticipation without knowing what they're waiting for, or why certain ideas suddenly feel too big to belong to the current year. The cold supermoon wasn't about ending a cycle, it was about preloading the next one. Think of 2026 not as a distant point on the calendar, but as a frequency that just made its first contact with you. This supermoon acted like an early handoff, a preview of the possibilities you're stepping into long before the world catches up. The people who are energetically tuned in, even slightly, are already picking up on the whispers. A sense that life is about to restructure itself in a more aligned way, that new paths will open faster than expected, that ideas which once felt unrealistic suddenly feel doable. That feeling isn't imagination, it's early access. You may notice certain themes forming in your mind, a new curiosity, a new ambition, a new priority, or even a subtle sense of something bigger is coming. These aren't random thoughts. They are the echoes of a timeline that your energy has already begun syncing with. If you're still watching, I'd like to thank you for your attention. If you enjoyed the content and want to see more, please consider clicking the subscribe button. Your support is very appreciated. Feel free to share your experiences or thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, take care and subscribe for more insightful content.